go.
Slide.
Yep. Right, good afternoon. Let's start now. This is commonly known as the graveyard session because it's just after lunch on the last day and everyone is exhausted. But we will continue with this session. So my name is Paul Campling. So I'm International Business Development Manager at Vito in Belgium. And so a very warm welcome to you and for those who are online. This is the last of the 4 water sessions that we've had over the last 2 days, so we're completely exhausted. But anyway, in the plenary, we explored the multifaceted challenges confronting Africa's water security, with the issue of non-revenue water coming to the fore as an urgent issue to tackle, certainly in South Africa. This was followed by a deep dive session that explored how industries, agriculture and governments can transition towards water positive pathways, moving beyond efficiency to regenerate water resources and reduce risk. And then this morning we had a very comprehensive double session around decentralized water and energy systems. So this brought together really practical people, practitioners, policymakers and researchers together to share knowledge and examine real-world experiences and identify the best practices for these decentralized systems. So in this final session, we want to explore the next generation of approaches to water monitoring, from contaminants of emerging concern and microbial pollution to non-revenue water management and wastewater treatment. As climate change intensifies and pressures on water systems increase, good water quality is crucial for climate adaptation and sustainable water management. We will look into approaches that foster collaboration towards safe, resilient and high quality water systems in a changing climate. So we have a great lineup of speakers to explore these issues and share their experiences. First of all, we will have Alina setting the scene for water science cooperation and innovation. Then that will be followed by Doris tackling contaminants of emerging concern. And then we'll have a presentation from Jay looking at non-revenue water management in South Africa. And then we have a presentation from Anshuman on the Jal Mitra system, which has been developed by Terry in rural communities of India. And then right at the end, we'll have a joint presentation by Catherine van Hooijdonk and Didier Cadelli around the Lake Tanganyika water dynamics. So I'd like to invite Mrs. Alina to come to the floor and I'll introduce you. So Mrs. Alina Mentembu is our first speaker. She is Acting Director for Environmental Services and Technologies at the Department of Science and Innovation. Do you want to start? I know from experience it takes a while to get things up. So just for efficiency, I'll carry on speaking like this. So previously, she worked as the Control Environmental Officer at the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment. Today, she will provide reflections on the implementation of the Water RDI roadmap that the Department of Science and Innovation have recently developed. So please give a warm welcome to Mrs. Alina.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Paul has indicated that this is normally called a graveyard slot, but I hope we'll turn it into a party, right?
Of course.
Yeah, we are a few people, but I'm sure we can really make a jol out of it. So today, colleagues, I'm just going to be giving some reflections of the Water RDI roadmap that has been implemented in South Africa. So the roadmap was conceptualized in 2015, and it was through a multi-stakeholder process whereby various stakeholders within the water sector was bring together so that we could develop a roadmap that will direct to us on key areas that needed to be implemented to ensure sustainability in the water sector through the use of SDI. Okay, let me just put everything in and not pop it out. So in this slide, colleagues, I just want to reflect back to say when we were developing the Water RDI, what were the key problems or the context of South Africa, and what were the key focus areas that we thought RDI could be instrumental at in terms of implementation, and some key thematic focus areas and some objectives that we did. So in 2015, South Africa was confronted with 4 key areas. One, it was that 98% of all our water resources was already allocated. And when we looked at the population projections, we would see that there would be a significant deficit in the future. And then the second part was that non-revenue water was sitting at 36%, which articulated into 17 billion of revenue lost per year. That is a lot of money, especially when you look at the context, socio-economic context of South Africa, that we're a middle-income country that is surrounded with the triple threat challenge of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. So we cannot, as a country, be comfortable to be having non-revenue water at 36%. And then the third element was that by 2030, at that time it seemed as 2030 was a long time away, but now in 2025 we are just talking about 5 years from now. It was that the demand would outstrip supply by 17%, but this amount was also very consecutive at the time because we had not taken into consideration the climate change projections that are now currently are giving a worsened state of water in the country. And then thirdly, it was a series of behavioral and governance complexities that was making the water sector even more complicated. And then areas of change in climate, we were already experiencing. In South Africa, impacts of climate change are mostly manifested through water. So we find ourselves in areas where we are having water shortages like day zero that we had in the Western Cape a couple of years ago. And then we look at the eastern part of the country, KZN, whereby frequently have flash floods. So that's how water became a demand in terms of responses for the country in terms of dealing with the impacts of climate change. Then the DSTI, through a multi-sector approach, were able to align what is needed in the water sector and the mandate of the department. So the mandate of the department was aligned in terms of the focus areas for the Water RDI roadmap, which is 3 things. One is around human capital development. It's the key objective around that focus is how do we increase the number of high-level capacity, high-level human capital in the country, so that we are talking about increasing the number of masters and PhD skills in the country in order to be able to drive the change that we are faced with. And then the second one is around research and development. And with research and development, we understand that the situation we are in, we continuously need to invest in research and understand what is our baselines. We also need to understand what is the new knowledge that is being generated and how does it inform into policy making, and furthermore, how does it become articulated into solutions that are going to benefit the people of the country. And then the last element is on innovation. So there, the focus around demonstration of water solutions that could take us to the sustainable future that we looked at. So the roadmap looked into some key thematic focus area. which were seen to be areas that would be able to assist us into implementing an efficient move. So one was around what are the alternative sources that we can use in order to mitigate what we are already being projected in terms of water challenges we have. The second element was on governance planning and managing, to say at our local level and also national and professional, how do we manage water in such a strategic manner that it's not only about us having quality water, but showing that there is equal distribution of water across the country. I've mentioned that some of the triple challenges that we are facing at South Africa is issues relating to inequality. So water access, you can just imagine that that is one of the things that we do. And then there was issue around built an ecological infrastructure, to say how do we use some of the natural resources linked to the water sector that we can be able to improve the quantity and quality of water we have in the country. And then also from the innovation and entrepreneur space, to say how are we building smart businesses that are going to drive sustainable features in the water sector, and then monitoring and metering. With non-revenue water, we know most of the thing is that a lot of water gets lost in the system, but we can only tell how much water is lost if we are able to monitor and measure. So we cannot make even projection to say what is the amount that we are losing if we are not having significant monitoring tools in place. So all of this was there to really achieve three strategic objectives in the country. One, it was because I'll keep on emphasizing that the development of the roadmap was a multi-stakeholder approach. So we understood that as much as the STI sits with the mandate of STI, of science, technology, and innovation in the country, but we understand the value chains of water, and we cannot ignore all the stakeholders and there. So we ensure that they are all in the room and we come with interventions that talks to all of us. So all those interventions were there to achieve these three core strategic objectives. The first one was to ensure that there is a better coordination and improved decision making in the water sector, so that ultimately we can have that translation of research into practice. We cannot be just sitting with and be comfortable with knowledge generation, but not be able to put it into practice so that it can really improve the lives of South Africans. And then the second one was around having a faster and more comprehensive deployment and context-appropriate performance improvements and solutions. So when we say context-appropriate, we understand that the western part of the country is not the same with the eastern part of the country. So how do we come with context-specific that will also take into consideration the socio-economic challenges in the country? And then the last... Apologies. You know, when they say technology can also be your worst enemy, that's my alarm that said I must pick up my children, but that's not what I'm doing today. That is an indication for me to get out of the office. Okay, so the third one is about more products and services to reach markets through better coordinated water innovation pipeline. So more product and services to meet markets. Now it's that element around smart businesses, to say, how do we ensure that the solutions that are developed are able to be uptaken in the market and contribute to the GDP and be able to solve some of the socioeconomic challenges we are having in the country. So those were the contexts that the Water RDI roadmap was developed under and was aimed at achieving. So it was a 10-year program, and it came to its conclusion in March 2025. I'll just then, as time goes on, just share what is the next steps in terms of that. So 7 implementation pillars were identified, both on the water supply component as well as the water supply demand. So in terms, and these pillars then were further translated in work packages, 3 work packages that were aligned to the RDI focus that I've touched on in the previous slide. So in terms of water supply, one of the key things that, or clusters that we wanted to really see being implemented under this, was that we wanted to see an increase, to increase the ability to make use of more sources of water, including alternatives. And secondly, it was to improve governance and planning management for supply and delivery. When you look at how water is managed in South Africa through the National Water Act, which is actually currently under amendments, is that the different spheres are given the roles and responsibility, but local government is the one who sits with the bulk of it because they are the one who are sitting with basic service delivery to be implemented. And then the fourth one is around improving the adequacy and performance of supply infrastructure. In South Africa, where we are currently sitting, some of the challenges that we are facing in the water sector is around aging infrastructure. So how do we ensure that we are able to take cognizance of the different infrastructure maps in the country and see how we better implement? And then the fourth one under the supply, it was to run water as a financial sustainable business by improving operational performance. And then with the water demand side, then there were three key implementation areas that we needed to look on. Similarly to the supply side, in the demand, we also had issues to look at around governance, planning, and management of demand and use, and then also look at how do we reduce losses and increase efficiency of productive use. I think in Jay's presentation, he's going to touch a lot on non-revenue water, and you will see some of the work that the WRC has been also doing in the area. And then the last one is to improve the performance of pricing, monitoring, billing, metering, and collection. So some of the challenges that we have at the municipal level is around that because of not good infrastructure in most things, it's difficult to price some of the water or meters in there because we know especially in informal areas as well as in disadvantaged communities. So metering and billing becomes an issue, and that is some of the reasons that you will hear when you are engaging with colleagues at local government level to say that is one of the disadvantages of not being able to also collect revenue. For the interest of time, I will just jump these two slides because what really I wanted to translate here is that with those various clusters, we were able to also develop research, development, and deployment outcomes. But what I really want to, sorry Paul, just 2 minutes. What I really want to share with you is that what were we able to achieve under the Water RDI roadmap, taking into consideration those 3 areas of technology development, knowledge generation, and human capital development. So we had, on the onset, have set targets for all those areas as indicated on the screen. As you can see by the figures, most of the areas we have been able to get over, to achieve and even achieve more. But in certain areas, we have had issues whereby there was underperformance. Like for instance, when you look at the provisional of patents and applications, the target there was 224, but we were only able to do until the 23-24 financial year 93. In terms of human capital development, we had indicated that postdocs would be 215 that would come out of it, but we were sitting at 175. So with the doctorates and masters numbers, some of these things that were underperformed, it's not an issue that things were not happening, but we had financial constraints, which leads us to the second, my second last slide to say, some of the challenges, let me start with the challenges, was the resource constraints. Initially, when we had that multi-stakeholder approach that I said I'll keep on mentioning, we had this idea that all the strategic water partners in South Africa would collaborate in terms of implementing this, but unfortunately that was not the case. Only 10% of what was initially allocated or budgeted for the implementation of the roadmap was the one that was actually being allocated through DSTI as well as the Water Research Commission in terms of implementing this. So you can just imagine if all the strategic water partners in the country had come on board and been able to implement what could have been the end results of the implementation of the roadmap. The second one was around the coordination across multi-stakeholders, just linked to say, if we could have more people that had seen the value of this, we would have actually been far. And then in terms of the successes, I think one thing that we did right with the Water RDI roadmap as a country is that it really gave clear strategic framework and alignment. And we saw that through how other national policies were able to take the outcomes of it and integrate it into their policies. For instance, the research chapter of the National Water Resource Management Strategy 2 was actually what came out of the Water RDI roadmap. So that was there, that it was seen within the sector as something relevant that other sector departments could take. And then also the institutional mechanisms for coordination was quite good. We had the Water Roadmap Project Management Unit being hosted at the Water Research Commission, and that enabled for stakeholders that were not traditionally stakeholders that the DSTR could converse with to be able to reach the implementation of this. And then capacity building and skills development. We have emerging projects that were very interesting that came that we were not even initially had envisioned, like the Living Catchments program, whereby it takes into a community level and tries to pull in the different stakeholders. So what is next for us is that we are transitioning to circular economy. The STI white paper as well as the decadal plan has identified circular economy as a new source of growth. So water in there is one of the key sectors that has been identified. So we are, as the Department of Science and Technology, have developed what we call the Circular Economy STI strategy, that it looks into using STI to support the inclusive, just, and climate resilient circular economy transition in South Africa. So the implementation framework of it is multi-stakeholderal, as you could see. So we are anticipating that all stakeholders, we are already engaging to them so that they could feed into this. And we are anticipating that by the next time we give some presentation, we would be able to now start to talk about the outcomes that are coming from the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. Very interesting to see how the funding agencies are coping with reduced funding in the pot, as it were. I want to move on now to a more technical presentation by my colleague Doris. So she's our second speaker. She's a researcher and project lead for circular water technologies at Vito. Previously, she worked as senior research engineer at Veolia, developing innovative technical solutions dealing with circular economy and sustainability areas for the application of environmental biotechnology. Today, she's going to address the use of water technology and circular water reuse to tackle contaminants of emerging concern. Bit of a tongue twister, but give a warm welcome to Doris.
Thank you for the introduction, Paul. Yes, so I'm going to talk about the invisible threat of contaminants of emerging concern. Yes, and in the context of, I prefer here. In the context of circular water use. But before that, I will position briefly water at Vito. So we are within the unit of water and energy transition, which is about 50 persons that work there in the water part. And we are active in 4 main areas, covering circular water technologies, digital water and soil, water economy and economy with the new business models associated with the value of water. And also we are active in living labs where innovations are tested, and we help to de-risk the innovative solutions that are developed. Can be from us or as well from other, for example, technology suppliers. We provide support. Coming into the contaminants of emerging concern and their challenge, they are, as you know, a wide group of contaminants with different origins, and this makes the problem more challenging. And there has been a lot of work that has been done. Still, the threat is there, and this also poses some challenge and some. It mines the trust of public in water reuse. Still, it is important to have water reuse. And the approach that we are aiming to implement in Flanders, it's an approach that is based on a value chain, on the water value chain, so that the problem can be addressed in a sustainable way. And this means that looking from sources, pathways, treatment solutions, risks associated, all the way to a policy response. That is important to really understand what happens all along, and from there see how to reduce the risks. And as part of this work, the condition of the water, ensuring that it is safe, it's very important, and this can be done through different things that will be combined together, but monitoring and treatment are key. So as to follow from the line from what I said before, to know what it is there, where it comes from, and also then how to remove it. It's important. And I will now in the next part of the presentation give you examples of how we use this, we address these two aspects in, through our activities. So starting from monitoring and in line with what I was saying before, so it's important to know which pollutants, how much, and where are they detected, from where they come. And by measuring also allows to get a better awareness, and also to support and to enable, I should say, the cooperation between stakeholders then to address the problem. And also with this knowledge, then it will be possible to make the more efficient the management of the water systems. And still on reliable monitoring, there are different ways of sampling from the traditional grab samples all the way to online sensors, and this associated with advances that have been happening with digital solutions and data-driven approaches with getting more and more information. It's very important and can support the implementation of mitigation as well as reuse strategies. And I will give you one example just of one project where we are putting this together to illustrate what we are doing. So it's a waterproof project. I will get back to it just after, and it was as well presented yesterday. So we are combining the information from the treatment process with the information obtained from monitoring, using traditional lab methods as well as traditional parameters, and also more innovative measurements with more innovative sensors like UV visible spectrometry. And by gathering this information, then we are working on strategies that will be utilized in the optimization of the process, of the treatment process. And now I will move into the treatment aspect, more related to technology. And I will tell you a bit more about the waterproof project. So the work that I will present you, it's related to to the site in the eastern side of Flanders. Here it's kind of the orange symbol on the bottom right for you. And it is in the fruit region. And there what we were looking at was at reuse of treated municipal effluent. And that then the idea was to use it in irrigation of fruit trees. And we compared different treatment trains, three, as indicated here in this table. One based on adsorbent, activated carbon, and two based on membrane filtration, two types of membrane filtration. One nanofiltration and the other one combination of UF-RO. And this with the technical objective of looking at removal of the contaminants of emerging concern on one side, and on the other side as well on salts that can have an impact on the crop. Here in this slide I'm showing you just an example of results to give you an overview of the work. And on the graph on the left side you see for about 1 year, which was the profile for pharmaceuticals of the effluent of the municipal wastewater treatment plant where we placed the pilots. And on the right side, it's an example of the efficiency of removal of the different treatment trains. You actually see 4 bars because we have studied 2 contact times for the adsorbent, for the activated carbon. Overall, the results showed that the treated water was of good quality, sufficient quality for irrigation than for apples and pears. That were the fruit trees that we were targeting. And now I will move into my second example, which relates to industrial water, in this case reuse of treated industrial water from a vegetable processing industry. And I've chosen it as an example to put forward because of the relevance of the sector in Flanders and in West Flanders. And also because then as type of industry, they have a large water consumption and also have challenges with pesticides. The water treatment technologies that are used have limited removal, as shown here in this graph on the right. In this case, the treatment technology that we have looked at was constructed wetland. I should say that we are looking at, because it is work ongoing as part of a PhD program together with Ghent University. So what we are, in this specific experiment, we were looking at the mechanisms of removal of the pesticides, with sorption being one important mechanism in constructed wetlands. And so we have tested different substrates in column experiments, as well as an intensified design to compare. And here it's a brief summary of the results obtained. So the substrate tested were sand and biochar. And then in the intensified design, there was less substrate put in the column and as well aeration inserted. And as you can see, biochar gave the best results for the selected pesticides, followed by the intensified constructed wetland, and for most of them. And now we are on the next step testing these 2 at pilot scale. And this takes me to my final messages. So I have shown you the importance of a value chain approach to tackle the problem of contaminants of emerging concern. And it's, as I mentioned, it's important to have a good system for monitoring and treatment to then enable safe water reuse. The choice of the technology depends on the contaminants as well on considerations of cost of the economy, and all in all, like it has been said all through the conference, circular water use, it's necessary and it's a pathway to a resilient and sustainable water future. And with this, I thank you, and if you have questions, thank you.
Yeah, we'll do. Yep. We'll take questions at the end. Thanks very much, Doris. Now we move on. Now we move on to Mr. Jay Bhagwan. He's a senior research manager of water quality and health at the Water Research Commission. He is highly experienced in dry sanitation technology development and public health research in the surveillance of waterborne diseases in wastewater. So today Jay will introduce us to the approaches dealing with non-revenue water management. Please, warm welcome for Jay. Thank you.
So I'm not picking up my children, I'm going to time myself. Okay. Good. Yeah. Okay, that's a better picture of me, just to introduce myself. But I'm going to talk about non-revenue water. You know, talk more about the pathways of the next generation of tracking, compliance, and management. But I want to start, you know, with this problem that we have, and I think yesterday, if you were there with the DG, he kind of highlighted, you know, this issue of non-revenue. You know, we kind of uncovered this in 2012, you know, for the first time. Very scared in this political environment to tell that we're losing a lot of water. And at that time we were losing on average about 35%, you know, across the country in municipal supplies. That was 15, 16. But we had started a long time ago. I don't know if it's turning, my thing's changing here. Yeah. So, you know, from that time, I mean, we call it our growing lost drops. You know, we had a lot of attention, a lot of what you call impetus towards generating innovation and technology to deal with it. But the political will was very, very little. You know, and I'm going to come to it, that over those 10 years and more, we're now sitting at, you know, the last year's report puts us on average 50%, okay, but it's extreme. You know, it's 80% in some municipalities, it's 26% in some municipalities. And, you know, you ask, how can this carry on? I mean, you know, you have rural municipalities where they really struggle for water, but they lose 80, and people have dry taps. They don't have water. And we let this kind of continue, and we keep getting into the media and talking about a crisis, okay? And it starts with the black and white, a poor and a rich. You know, crisis is a time of intense difficulty or danger. Crises are man-made. You know, people talk about Cape Town Day Zero. No one says it was man-made. It was man-made. You know, no one should have released that water to put Cape Town in a crisis. No one will write about, in a time of drought, we have very strict rules around resources. In a time of drought, we don't give normal allocations. Cape Town, somebody opened that dam, and no one has taken accountability that it could have led to a big disaster. So most of our issues are man-made. And when we talk about man-made, we're now starting to ask, is it a perfect storm? Because now we have, due to climate change, issues of floods, droughts, finance is drying up, people are not paying for water, and then we have the normal constraints that are coming. And so we see that, we have all of this stuff that is putting additional pressure on the supply of, water supply. Now, yesterday the DG was very, very modest. He said that we have a problem. We have a governance crisis in this country. It's not a technical issue. We have enough technologies, we have enough solutions, we have enough innovation. Somewhere somebody needs to put a lot of the guys in an orange overall and lock them up. Then we can fix the sector. But corruption is our big problem. That's, adding more to the problem that we are facing. And, we're at a situation where our municipalities are technically bankrupt. You can close them up. I mean, it's like if you bankrupt, they close you up. I find it very strange that in a bankrupt municipalities, the BMWs continue to run and get finance, but they don't fix the leaks. So we're living in this paradigm that it's all man-made. And, people are beginning to protest. I protest. It's not only poor people, etc., toy-toying, and that I protest as well. I'm getting cut off, I'm understanding what it is to be constipated naturally or unnaturally because there's no water to flush, etc. And I have to go to the next city to bring a couple of buckets from somebody's swimming pool. That's the reality we're heading towards. So it's a big problem. But we're not alone in this, just to be nice, this ignorance is also in the Americas. If you look at the water losses in America, it's even better than us. So we should feel good in certain way. But, like I said, we have lots of intelligence. I mean, we're not short of what is going wrong, what is happening, etc. And when you talk about non-revenue water, the intervention strategies have been there forever. I mean, nothing has traditionally changed. Network monitoring is 101. Pressure management is, quick intervention. We pioneered pressure management out of South Africa. In fact, we still have the largest facility in the world, in Khayelitsha, as well as in Vereeniging. The biggest pressure management facility that we demonstrated it can act as an interim measure. The issues of planning for non-revenue water, these are all basics, proactive leak detection, training, asset management, all basics. Our new kid on the block is vandalism. There is no technology solution for vandalism. If you put the camera to watch it, it'll disappear, the camera, and the equipment will disappear. So this is a new problem we have in the system. But, we've been doing the pioneering work in South Africa and globally. I mean, if you go into the kind of research work, etc., we were the first in the world to actually do an end-to-end country analysis of non-revenue water. That was in 2012, using all this pioneering work that we've been developing with our global partners, etc. And, we gave effect to this in a regulation. No drop comes from the work we've done. So if DST and DSI ask for impact from research, there's a good example. Innovation going into policy and regulation. So no drop comes from a lot of that research work and is now done on a biannual basis. I'm not going to go into this, but you'll heard about the BABE technology, etc. It's called burst and background estimation, not the good babes on the this thing and stuff, but it's a nice acronym. But it's got this kind of 4 modules, etc. And if you understand that, so just a thing I say that if I take, every water manager, etc., in a municipality, and I give them a test, what you call a selective choice test on non-revenue water, all of them will fail because no one has the competency to understand what non-revenue water is about. They're all there in tenderpreneuring and procurement. No one is really into the business. And I think that's why the DG said yesterday, we're moving into a very wholesale environment of transforming the water services sector by compulsory licensing, so that we can clean it up and professionalize it. So I'm not going to go into this. If you want, there's lots of literature around the stuff, etc. But I want to take you all, because when you're sitting with a problem of over 50% non-revenue water, these things are basic. You have to start moving to the higher end innovation and etc. And I think the IoT and the digital space is where we need to kind of harness and capture a lot of that, because you can't, it'll take me 3 times to be born by the time we fix with the traditional ways. We have to use the opportunity of smart water solutions, etc., because they bring this new nuances, etc., in it. But it's not all glory, okay? Like I said, that digitization gives us the opportunity for real-time monitoring, predictive maintenance, etc., data integration, overcoming the silos that we deal with, changing public perception because we can be bi-directional in communication around what we're doing, using data for multi-purposes, AI, etc., etc., enhances decision-making, feedback and all of that stuff. But we have a lot of barriers. We have water institutions that come designed to be building concrete. We call them the 20th century institutions trying to solve 21st century problems. Okay, the pipe is no more civil engineering. It's an instrument. And so we see very conservatism by utilities to digitization, because they're all engineering, hardcore, what's going to happen to my pipe, etc. I need to hug it, and those kind of stuff. A lot of resistance, within, utility staff, that they're going to lose their jobs, etc. Throw the issue of cybersecurity to you to say, these things are unsafe, etc. They don't see the lack of return on investment in putting those things. They say we want to see, then the ROI kind of debate comes up. Skills gap, is a big issue, etc. And then there's, uncertainty because the cost keeps creeping. Now, something about digitization, 2 things we learned, through the process. If an institution is not digitally ready, you can't implement digitization. And that's one of the key problems. I mean, even if you take Microsoft Abode and you introduce it to an organization where people don't know where to press the keys, you're not going to get the full impact. You have to first be digitally ready, okay? And that's one of the fundamental problems in municipality. They're not digitally ready, okay? The second thing is that the digital solutions that come have to be ready, technology ready, have to be at the technology readiness level where they can be. So there's a lot of cowboys that come. I mean, I like this thing of people, Dr. Masindi was yesterday talking about, we're going to develop these sensors that are going to tell you where the leaks are. Man, stick it in my heart and then you can also find out if I'm going to have a heart attack, So, this kind of things around sensors and that, sensors are not real bugs, You're not going to find a leak with a sensor. It's going to give you data. So these things, you get a lot of cowboys that come, my sensor is going to do this, my sensor is going to do that, I'm going to fix. Digitization is not everything. You have to be a little bit smart and wise. Digitization is about data. Okay, data is what you interpret. What you interpret is the intelligence, and how you apply it is what brings you solution. So don't think that digitization and like these guys come around, don't worry, I'll find your 100 leaks, put the satellite up and put this thing up and etc. We tried all that, it doesn't work. So don't be honest about it. So we went in and looked at what is happening on the digital front in the world, and to our surprise, we could only find 34 technologies around the world. Not like there's not a whole lot of 1,034 registered products. But the interesting thing is only 1/3 of them were at a TRL 9. And this is how you get caught out. So these are the things you need to ask anyone that comes. I mean, youngsters, I can fix a little program for you. It'll whistle and whistle and this thing and do all of that stuff. Man, it's like selling muti. You understand? So the digital space is like that. It's people concocting things. But the real stuff is when technology is at the TRL 9 and it proves it can do the stuff, can do the integration and all those kind of stuff. And there's a step in digitalization that people kind of miss. They come in at the end and think everyone, it's like non-revenue water. If I go to municipalities and today do an audit, how many of them, with the percentage of non-revenue water, how many of them have a department that deals with non-revenue water? You'll find half an engineer. That's the status of what we're dealing with. So it's the same thing. You give the smart meter to a civil engineer and you expect it to work. We've been to municipalities where we've thrown millions of meters away because when it failed, the engineer didn't know what to do, so he just threw it away and he said, I don't like this stuff. So we must learn from this thing that, this stuff of digital readiness is a pathway. It's a whole paradigm shift, starting with leadership in understanding and embracing and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm going to see how much time I have. 3 minutes, that's good. So I'm not going to go into this kind of thing, but we're seeing these trends. There are movements, but we're still looking for that digital solution, kind of the, what is a Clint Eastwood kind of model that is going to shoot everything down and work for us. And we haven't seen that on the global market. There are little bits of asset management stuff, maintenance stuff, asset life stuff, etc. But these are all still very, very new. We haven't seen something that is really cutting edge, except we've seen stuff on optical fibers. It's a very low cost leak detection solution. It's cheap to lay it out into your infrastructure. Let me correct that. It's cheap to buy it. It's very expensive to put it into the ground. Okay, because you now have kilometers and kilometers, and when you have branches and that, how do you branch a fiber and those kind of stuff? So there is a solution. It's something, if I'm starting with a greenfield long distance pipeline, I would put this thing in because it's easy. It can pick temperature changes, it can pick deflections, it can pick all sorts of stuff and tell you exactly down to a range of 10% where your leak would be. So these are kind of developments that are on the pipeline. I think Anati talked about the non-revenue water portal. It's going to be a new SASE digital platform that's going to offer a lot of stuff in the South African end. But in closing, just to say that, there's the other part of non-revenue water, and the DG talked about it, it's poor behavior. This culture of entitlement, around the world, that we live in a country where there's enough water, is our big, big, big problem as well. It's can put it under non-revenue water as well. Or you put it under water loss, because people on average consume more than the average people in the world. And that behavior we're using averages. I can tell you, in Gauteng, from a high income to a low income, you're seeing consumptions of 400 to 600 liters per capita, going down to 5 to 6 liters. So when you average that, it looks like 297. Check your bill and you can calculate, you may be in the 300 liters or 350 liters per capita range. So we have this behavior issue. And this behavior issue is growing, that it's putting a lot of pressure on the infrastructure. I was talking to Imran earlier to say that our infrastructure cannot cope with this behavior because people are drawing 5 times more than what the straw can put through the system. So we're having all of these issues that impacts. It's not financially viable and economically viable to design a pipeline for 1 hour peak, that's 5 times higher. You wouldn't pay for it. You wouldn't pay for that service. So this behavior aspect also, also adds to the issue of this, water loss problem. And then the other thing is that we live in a world that's very, very unequal. Wherever there's inequity, you're going to have these big problems, And until we fix the issue around this aspect as well, it's going to be a challenge. Technology will not be able to kind of deal with that. And, in closing, I always remind people that when we're there in a crisis or we're there in a storm, the only way we can dig ourselves out of that is to innovate our way. And it's something our politicians don't understand. It's something our administration and decision makers don't understand. That, we sit on piles and piles of innovation, but it's very hard for us to get them to see. In fact, a lot of the innovation we develop in South Africa is used in Thailand, is used all the other places, and they come and sell it back to us. And that's the irony in where we live out. But that's where we are. Thanks.
Oops. Right. Great. Thanks a lot, Jay, for that inspiring presentation. One comment I had from Sean Phillips yesterday was that innovation is not just about technology, it's also about governance. So we should look for innovation in our governance as well. Right. I'll now move on to our fourth speaker, Anshuman. So he's Director of Water Resources at the Energy and Resources Institute in New Delhi, India. He has more than 25 years of experience in the water sector. His expertise lies in integrated water resource management, water use efficiency, and water quality and quantity assessments. For this session, Anshuman will present an approach developed by Terry in India called Jal Mitra, to improve water governance in rural communities. Please give a warm welcome to Anshuman.
Thank you, Paul, for allowing me into this session, and coming from an organization which has spent or completed 50 years, Terry, last year, and also being in the field for almost now 30 years, Paul, and listening to the range of topics in the sessions around, gives me a feeling that I should talk about almost everything. I mean, hearing Jay about non-revenue water, it gives me my goosebumps of working with the cities in India. And not one slide that he presented was not matching to what we have in there. And we have been talking about all of this since now 2-3 decades. But be as it may, my topic is not non-revenue water. I'll focus on something that we worked very recently. And I think, Paul, as you mentioned, I think it's about good governance. And as Terry, while we function on different range of innovation, best practices and technologies, one of the things that we also very much focus on is how such innovations, best practices, technology, etc., are going to basically be implemented on ground. And when we are saying on ground, it's not just the governments or the municipalities or the people who run the show of providing water. It's also the beneficiaries, the communities who are on ground, and how we can bring them on board and how we can empower them so that the system actually is mutually responsive. So what I mean to say is, for example, if I'm a ULB supplying water to a particular city or a village, I'm saying, okay, I'm having this, I have done this and that. But what about the beneficiary's voice? Are they really in a position to first even monitor and understand what is being given to them, and two, in a way, sort of control them or at least respond to the system in a way it is mutually, coexisting and corresponding. And that's something that we thought about, in this particular project, which is in Hindi called Jal Mitra. It's basically meaning water friend. And what we focused on was how we can really bring in such system of governance which can, to some extent, engage and bring the rural community on board, and also in a way empower them to basically look into the strengths of science, technology, and how they can ease and get benefited from the entire systems and the technological advancements. So what we did in this particular project, as a background, we know the challenges of the water sector. I'm not going to detail them out. But just to mention, as responses across the world, countries are focusing on providing piped water supply to every citizen. Government of India had initiated a big program. There have been many earlier as well, but the recent one is Jal Jeevan Mission or Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which essentially is about providing piped supply water to the rural household, every household. It's an enormous project. A lot of investment has gone. It's already 5 years in its inception, and some good I would say success stories have come across as well. But I think in the process, again, for any such big projects, that the challenges are always about not the provision of the infrastructure only. It's also about governing them, operation and maintenance of them, and as well as the social and the rural communities' acceptance of that. And that's where we thought, why don't we come up with something which can in a way provide an assistance to such program, and also a better access and the upkeep of such infrastructure which has been built with billions of dollars of investment across the country. And so what we did in this particular project was basically we created a sort of knowledge platform in the form of an application, a mobile application, which we have named as Jal Mitra. We focused in 4 or 5 locations across one of the states of India called Uttar Pradesh, Jhansi and Banda region. They are the districts. And in these districts, we basically focused on, these are the districts which are anyways devoid of, are suffering of having water scarcity and drought-prone areas. And they do have a supply-related issue. So what we thought about was, why don't we engage with their community and also the local governance, the water boards, the people who are responsible for supplying the water to the location. So at one hand, what we thought was we'll build the capacity of the location of the local youth and the local citizens on what are the key challenges of the water sector. More importantly, how do you address them? How do you understand them? How do you monitor them? How do you look into the interventions? All that in the vernacular language and supported through the app. So we went on the field, gave them a lot of training programs on understanding the subject, the details of it, but more importantly also giving them a snapshot and understanding of the app and train them on that app as to how to operate and understand the entirety of the water supply system challenges. Now what is this app about? So the app basically is about, it's like, to put it simply for you to understand, it's like that Amazon app. You can sit at your home, order a particular material or stuff. Sitting at your home, you pay for it, you choose for it, and from a particular location or a shop, that thing comes to you through a service provider, and you get benefited of whatever you wanted to purchase, sitting at your home through an app, fraction of seconds. This is something that we thought about to bring in into the water app. Now what this app does is, I'll give you more details in a while, but basically we provided the linkages of all the systems, and the people who are in the process of supplying water. So right from the local water board to the, those vendors who are there for technicians who do the tap fitting or the leakage repair or anything else that you want to do. But not only for drinking water, anything somebody wants to do, for example, home rainwater harvesting or a grey water recycle reuse or a pond rejuvenation in the community, all of that. So we built all the basic information with the linkages to if somebody wants to do that, he will or she will have the access of that vendor along with the cost, along with the other information for him or her to take that call. If I do want to do a rainwater harvesting, I have an app, and I can choose from different options. I can look for what it means. I can look for the information, what is the rainwater harvesting in a simplified version, and then choose to take it or not take it. It's up to me. So either if I am wanting to do a leakage reporting, or I want to change my tap, or I wanted to report something which is not right with my infrastructure, all of that was built into the system. So somebody can raise a, app-based complaint or raise a job for replacing a tap or putting a leakage control or a rainwater harvesting or things like that. So this is what we built into the app and created and linked all the, by going on ground and having a training session with the local water board people, the engineers, the vendors, and the, all those people who are able to basically provide the material, etc., but also the beneficiaries as to how to use them, how to get benefited of all that system. So this was a two-way approach of training the local community, bringing on board the local engineers who are supplying water, and also providing the tool through this app of Jal Mitra, as we call them. So this entire thing was a very lengthy process in which we created a lot of manuals with all the O&M techniques, tools and equipment handling, plumbing basics, water quality, monitoring, and how to understand the water quality, and the strategies for, as I said, water conservation across the board. So it was a very detailed exercise of creation of this kind of system in a simplified language, and also dissemination not only through the hard copies, but also through training and the app support that we provided as part of this exercise. All right, so and we also engaged, of course, as I said, the local engineers and the government bodies on board. As I said, all of these details, the training programs. And we did it in different locations, as you can see. One of the things that we made a point was women participation. And we did a whole lot of exercise in basically stakeholder mapping and identification of them and bringing them on board to the fore for this entire training program and the introduction to this Jal Mitra app. In different locations, as you can see, different kinds of stakeholders and the training sessions in which we introduced, acquainted them with not only the challenges but also with the app. I'll come to the app in just a second. But not only at the rural areas, we also engaged with the local ministries and the district at the state level, at the central level. I think some of you might already know, well, across the governments are trying to digitize the information for better monitoring and that kind of thing. I do, to a large extent, agree with Jay when he mentioned about census, but some other day that debate. But still, there are things which can rationally monitor. What can be monitored, but you cannot go beyond a particular sort of parameter. You need to do some very physical monitoring as well. But be as it may, I think what we try to bring up is a model which can be replicated across the different states of the country. And when we went on ground, there was a lot of dissemination and knowledge sharing activities taken up. For example, in the local radio system, we had disseminated the information. I had sort of interactive session with the jockey on what this system is about, and in the local language, Hindi and Bundelkhandi, we actually disseminated the benefits of and what is this whole system about, so that people are able to understand and come on board. And this is how the app looks like. The sort of, like any other app, but you can register and it's an interactive thing. It's already there on all the major platforms. And as of now, it's up and running in the region of Bundelkhand where we are working. So this is an interface, for example, user home screen. You have a range of, options, as I mentioned, about, whether it is pipe fitting or a shower or a let's say leakage or a pump replacement or for if you want to do some rainwater harvesting or things like that. All of those are the step-by-step processes and options available, and you can go and choose and start doing that. How it works is not just at the consumer end. It's because we have linked and trained the local government agencies who are actually on job for deploying such kind of services, and they have been onboarded. So there's a dashboard with the local chief engineer who all these such jobs raised has a monitoring dashboard. He knows today I have had 10 jobs raised, and therefore I have to get it sort of sorted out in the timeline which has been decided. So his systems, his people, his engineers on ground already know that this is a system which is linked with my chief engineer, and they are on, in a way, time bound, to deliver the kind of service which is required to. And this is still in process, I would say. What we have thought about is we'll monitor this for almost a year. We are already 6 months down, and we have seen some no less than 172 jobs already raised in 6 months. It was very slow in first 3 months, but it picked up, as we went on, interacting with the local community from time to time. And this is something which caught the attention through the engineer of the state bodies of the country. And they are now in discussion with us to replicate this in other districts of the country, Paul. And this is something which is very encouraging for us, because this is something that just we sat sitting in our home and we thinking about the kinds of app that we have been using. I thought, why can't this be done for a rural folk as well, and make his or her life easier? And I want to share with you in a way, a success story of the sort. If you look into, there were many who actually came on board and shared their experiences about how they feel about it. Some of them at the start felt that, this, for example, how to raise the job, the complexity of getting into this or that. But the moment we make them understood that it's just like your Amazon app, you have to go to different options, choose your options, and then once you're done, you just create the job. And when we trained them on that, they started finding it easier. And by the time we were, in a way closing the project, there were already some success stories, and people like you can read. They shared that this is a life-changing thing for them. And that's something that we envisaged for the rural community. I mean, imagine people who have to walk, kilometers to go to, fetch water. If they can report something sitting at their home, that's really a saving of time and a lot of efficiency and ease of life, and empowering the community. I mean, this is also in a way reporting of the performance of the local body. So this system has really picked up quite well. Of course, there are challenges on how to optimize the app and how to manage the kind of flows of the traffic, etc. But I think our engineers are looking into it. They are not a problem. It's more about upgrading the system from time to time. And that's something that I wanted to share in this particular speech. I'll be very happy if there's any interest on this for working in this continent or any other topic of the interest that we will be. As Terry, we work on a number of issues in range, but I just thought this will be a good opportunity to share with you how such an app can be really game-changing thing at a location where you really are having such kind of infrastructural thing, not really functioning very efficiently. You heard about the non-revenue water leakage losses and so on and so forth. They remain in the rural areas as well. And such app can be, real boon for those people to have the access and empowerment of, getting the benefits and also raising the sort of concerns. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Anshuman, for that interesting development in the rural areas of India. We're now coming to the last speech. It's going to be a joint online presentation by Ms. Catherine van Hooijdonk and Mr. Didier Cadelli. Are they online?
Yes, hi Paul.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, okay. So I'll just introduce you both, and then you can start your presentation. So Catherine is Program Manager, Digital Water and Soil at Vito. She has more than 20 years of experience managing the implementation of international water projects, and is currently on the board for the Water4All Global Initiative. And Didier is Intervention Manager at Enable, which is the Belgian Federal Development Agency. We had a presentation this morning from his colleague, Stefan. He has more than 35 years of experience in water and environmental policy development, including 15 years in Africa. So Catherine and Didier will present some of the outcomes of a water quality monitoring project in the Lake Tanganyika Basin. Please welcome Catherine and Didier.
Thank you, Paul, and hi to all. It's an honor to speak to you today. I all know that this is the last speaker session in a full, interesting and inspiring 2 days. But today we want to take you to Lake Tanganyika and some dynamics in Lake Tanganyika. Didier Cadelli, he is online, but he's facing some issues with internet, so he asked me to go through the presentation. But in case there are any questions, you can reach out to him later on. Perhaps Lake Tanganyika is Dynamics. It's a project that's putting in place by Enable, the Belgian Technic Corporation. They are already working for several years in the area on different topics. So it's Didier who is responsible for implementing this project. And in fact, he came to us, to Vito. Doris did present Vito to ask for a specific support in water quality monitoring with the use of remote sensing and data analysis. So it's in fact this part that I would like to present briefly to you. The Lake Tanganyika Basin, perhaps you all know, it's a unique system. It's 70% of Earth's surface fresh water, which is huge. It's a very long lake, but especially it's a very deep lake. It goes up to 1,400 meters with very specific characteristics. It feeds up a population up to 12 million, and there are some challenges related to pollutions, plastics, and wastewater discharges. But it's also known for its very precious fish stocks and biodiversity hotspots. So it has the name of a most endangered lake. So that's not really a nomination to be proud of, but it's a nomination that we need to take into account. And recently, Bujumbura was facing a lot of flooding problems. Also, climate change impacts are huge in the region. But what is also very, very clear is that we still not know all. And a lot of things are unclear. It's a very deep lake with a very specific flows impacted by the winds. So a lot of processes are ongoing there. In fact, Enable, and you can see Didier here on the right, started with a huge water quality monitoring program in the Lake Tanganyika. The fish stocks are very important for the area, the water reserves too, but in fact there was not a lot of information available on water quality monitoring. So they started with reinforcing analytic equipment, capacity building of the laboratories, but also looking alignment of parameters and methodologies between the different countries, different languages. It's a transboundary lake, and they started to collect a bunch of data. But they also noticed that just by sampling alone, it would be very, very difficult to get a complete overview on water quality data of the full lake. Just to give an example on for instance, Lake Victoria, just one sampling campaign in Lake Victoria, the cost of gasoline for the boat, just the gasoline of the boat is more than $10,000 just for one trip. So they were looking, how can we add technology? Are there other sources of data we can use to complete this monitoring system? And this is how, in fact, the question of Enable came to Vito. So what perhaps just an overview, very brief overview on the data that was collected by Enable and all the partners in the area on water quality. There are a lot of stations. There were different types of stations in the 4 countries. So you can see the basin here, and here you see all the points where where the data has been collected. It's more than 31 parameters. It's the period of almost 1 year on different depths. So it's a huge database. But this database is still some this is data. A lot of people were saying it in the previous presentations as well. You have data, but data is no information. And what is the reliability of the data? So that's one of the things we try to help with analysis of data, comparison of data, but also looking for hypothesis. Okay, is this correct? What is the error? How valuable is this data? And how can we use this data? So we just did some analysis for support, but we also looked at some remote sensing images of satellite data. And here you can see, for instance, this is the Lake Tanganyika. This is the city of Bujumbura. You can see here the wastewater treatment unit of Bujumbura. And this is the Ruzizi River. It's the connection between the Lake Kivu and the Lake Tanganyika. From this satellite data, you can derive quite some information data as well through some analysis where our colleagues of the remote sensing department are good at. And this is, for instance, the same image, but converted into the suspended sediments information data. Here you can see it's another way of visualization. It's the same picture, but showed in another way. The same picture can also be used for identifying the chlorophyll A in this same area. So this is in fact the support that Vito was given to the project of Enable in Lake Tanganyika. And then, these pictures or data layers were available, but only for Vito, the colleagues who can manage these data. So that's the reason we started to set up a mock-up of a data platform. And this is in fact the result. It's just a print screen of this data platform, where in fact because not all the pictures, not all the satellite images are useful, and we have a lot of clouds. Some are, there is a lot of disturbance from the atmosphere. So here we made a collection of the images that can be used for information. You can see also shift between the years to compare some data, and there are some water quality indicators. So this is a mock-up. It's in fact an example on how this data and information can be shown and used by the different stakeholders in the region. This is just a small part in a longer process, so it's just a snapshot. But we see that a lot of things that can be improved is in fact the connection between the in situ sampling and the overpassing of the satellite. Now, sometimes the data, the in situ sampling data, is not connected with the images, and if we can connect those better, potentially we can use this data for validation. Sharing of data is a question mark. It's as open as possible, as closed as necessary. Also, the reliability of the data remains an issue, what makes it quite difficult to share it. So this is really something we need to work on. We see that really products for water quality derived from satellite data is very limited, because the East African reality has not been measured a lot. So we see that there are a lot of potentialities to improve the derived products from satellite data as well. Yeah, the power of capacity building, it has been mentioned in all the presentations. You can foresee instruments and tools, but it's very important that people can work with the tools, that they know the weaknesses and the strengths of the tools, of course. So what we are working now, or what we would like to progress on, is to see how we can set up further collaborations, how we can strengthen this availability of tools and information. And we are also looking at living lab approach, how the open learning environment, also in the framework of the living labs of Water4All Partnership, where we are collaborating in, also with the South African partners. So this is in very short an overview of some Lake Tanganyika dynamics. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Catherine, for presenting the work you've been doing with Didier in Lake Tanganyika Basin. So we've now we've got a few minutes to have some questions. So I'd like to see if there are any questions in the floor. I know it's been a long day and it's the last session, but still, don't be shy. I'm sure there's some interesting questions that you have. So just look around. Are there any particular questions? Yes.
Hi, I have a question on Lake Tanganyika.
Okay.
Is it the lake itself, is it like a multiple use area? Is it recreation, fishing, tourism? Are there certain parts of the lake that are absolutely no-go areas, etc.? Just to get an impression of the different water use pressures and what could be compromising its condition and status. Thanks.
Okay. Did you hear that, Catherine?
Yes, I can hear that.
Or maybe Didier wants to answer that?
Well, thanks for the questions. We must remain quite optimistic about the situation. Some part of the lake may suffer from anthropic pressure, mainly the northern part of the lake, due to pollution and nutrients coming from the major river like the Ruzizi one. But one of the big challenges is the climate change, which can affect the hydrodynamic of the lake, and that may also have impact on fishing and on availability of halieutic resources in the lake. That's why in the new phase of the project, we are going to extend the monitoring from water quality to also water level of the lake, which is impacted by climate change. And there's a lot of information missing on the meteorological condition on the lake. So the objective is also to install instrumented buoys on the lake in order to understand what's happening and to have data of meteor related to the lake. Of course, it's very interesting to link that with some data coming from satellite images like temperature, chlorophyll A, and turbidity, which are also affected by the hydrodynamic of the lake. But it's a very complex lake, and the approach of the project is a scientific approach. So we work with scientists, and we try to have collaboration with team from the riparian countries and from also from Europe. Thank you.
especially understanding the dynamics of Lake Tanganyika, because I know it's almost 4 countries, I think. So which organizations or agencies, institutions, they are collaborating with?
Thank you for the questions. So the project is supporting mainly Lake Tanganyika Authority, which is based in Bujumbura, but we are working with different laboratories coming from the 4 riparian countries, and we also work with stakeholders involved in water quality monitoring, water quantity hydrology, and meteorological operator, like for instance Zambia meteorological department, just to show you, to give you an example. On the scientific side, we work with University of Bujumbura. We have now just conducted a scientific-based assessment of the pollution of microplastic in Lake Tanganyika with University of Milano. In Belgium, we work with Vito and UCL. But the main operator is Lake Tanganyika Authority, who has the assignment to coordinate activities protection of the Lake Tanganyika. We work also with some NGO. We have also contact with Frankfurt Zoological Society, which is active on biodiversity protection, and NGO in Kipili. So there's quite a lot of different actors, stakeholders involved in the project.
Okay, thank you, Didier. One last question, or we'll just move on to my closing remarks. So I think today and yesterday was really fruitful for everyone around water. It's a very complex, complicated subject domain, and we have to keep going. And there's a lot of talk about governance as an issue, that we shouldn't just be looking at the technology. But my 3 takeaways from this session, and I think they relate to the other sessions as well, is that sustainable water management relies on a coordinated innovation and partnerships across sectors. So we should be working together. We have to empower the communities through training to strengthen long-term water resilience. So training and capacity building is really important. We saw that also this morning with the decentralized systems. And then smart monitoring, which we talked about today, and circular approaches, which was more addressed yesterday, are really key to efficient climate resilient water systems. So I think with that, I want to thank everyone today for this session, the speakers, and there were great insights into the work you've been doing. I hope it's been interesting for the participants, and I'd like to close the session. Thank you.